building the connections between public health and wellness and downtown revitalization and driving economic development and healthy communities. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Steve. And I think we have these guys here for as long as we need them. Typically, I want to make sure we wrap in about 30 minutes because I do have a kind of agenda item where we can let you guys head on your way. So does that timing work for you?
We will make it work. That's great. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
All right.
Steve.
Yeah, well, thanks, Ann. Thank you for this opportunity, and for you all. Thank you for letting us hijack some of your important time this morning. But I think you'll find it time well spent. So I'm Steve Trockman. I'm communications and community outreach manager with Community Health Benefits. Most of you probably know who we are, but we are a Lewiston-based nonprofit health insurance co-op serving the entire state of Maine. So that's insurance on the Affordable Care Act marketplace and other products as well. I come from public health. I have a master's in public health and in health promotion, health education. So that's my background. And in hospital-based healthcare before coming here. And I have a lot of connections. I mean, Rob, I don't know if we know each other, but I was on the DDA board for a number of years when I was with Midcoast Hospital, running outreach there. So I have a lot of love for all of you who are doing this Main Street, Maine and economic development work. So close place in my heart. Anyway, I won't spend any more time. I live in Topsom, by the way, but I will turn this over to Amanda to introduce herself. And then Amanda, if you can then just hand it over to our NFC friends.
Yeah, you bet. I'm Amanda McKenzie. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see everyone. I live in Brunswick, Maine, and I am the Health and Wellness Program Manager for Community Health Options. And we're really excited to be bringing this partnership with the National Fitness Campaign to Maine to build hopefully 5 to 10 of these really cool free outdoor fitness courts across the state this year. And so without further ado, I think we've got 3 members from National Fitness Campaign, Mike, Justin, and Ginger. And Mike or Justin, I don't know which one of you wants to kick it off, but I'll turn it over to you guys.
I can start, Amanda. Thank you. And thank you, Ann, for hosting us again today. You know, we had the opportunity to connect several weeks ago and kind of give you a rundown of the program. You thought it might be a good idea to present to this group. And so my name's Justin Krebs. I manage the state partnerships nationwide at the campaign, and I get the opportunity to work closely with Amanda, Steve, and the folks at Health Options to have, you know, some pretty positive conversations already, and hopefully a few more. And I think the goal for today is to present a condensed version of what we're doing, see if it makes sense, and then kind of figure out a path forward, how to brief individual communities. And so I'm joined today by Ginger and Mike on our partnership development team. And I think, you know, Ginger, you can go ahead and introduce yourself, and then Mike has a few slides to present to you folks.
It's nice to meet you all. Thank you again for having us this morning. I am Ginger with the partnership development team.
All right, that's my cue. I am Mike Cole with NFC, and I do have some slides for you guys, but Great. I am here to also, I think in the interest of time, and I think Justin said a brief version and sort of highlighted that for my benefit. And so I'll try and make this really brief. I think we can start with the video. And of course, the risk here is that I'm going to unplug, and then of course the doorbell will ring or the blower will start next door, but we'll see how this all works. So I'm going to share my screen first, and then I can take you guys through some information. I think what I'd like to do is make it a little bit more interactive, show the video. I have a slide presentation, but maybe we can open it up for questions immediately following the video, and I can just go to the slides that support the questions, if that makes sense.
And just so you guys know, I did send everybody the video. I'm not sure if everybody saw it or not. And I did send them, I don't know whether it was a 1-pager or some sort of written material as well.
Yeah, so is it safe to assume then that everybody's seen the video?
I guess we see 1, 2. I guess if you haven't seen it, can you just wave so we can see how many people? Terry Ann and Rob and Dawn and Karen. So I think we should show it. Sorry,
Okay.
guys, half and half.
Yeah, no, it's if you've seen it before, it's not boring, so you can see it again. I think it'll be all right.
It's short.
So, yep. So hang on, let me share my screen, cue it up. I'm just going to go to the desk, show my whole desktop here, and then I'll just be able to pop around from place to place. And are you guys seeing my screen with the overview shot of the fitness court? Great. Then I'm going to unplug so that you guys can hear this, and then hopefully this all works.
We're changing the way America thinks about fitness. With 200 fitness courts open, our campaign is growing. From college campuses to city parks and trails, we're bringing free fitness everywhere, and we're just getting started. Hi, I'm Mitch Benadget, founder of the National Fitness Campaign. The National Fitness Campaign was founded in 1979 when we opened the first fitness court. Redesigned for the 21st century, the fitness court is the world's best outdoor gym. Our 7-movement, 7-minute system allows you to use your own body weight to get the perfect workout. Easy or hard, it will work for you. Our goal is to build healthy communities by making outdoor fitness an essential part of people's lives so that each day is better than the last. Now more than ever before, it is vital that we move fitness outdoors to remain safe, healthy, and strong.
Michiganders, as soon as we can, we go outside, which is one of the reasons why the fitness court was such an attraction to us. What impressed us most was their basic philosophy that they want to provide world-class fitness for free. Truly, anyone can use, no matter what your age is, no matter what your physical fitness level is, no matter what your skills are, it is very adaptable.
Thousands of certified ambassadors will be trained to deliver classes, challenges, and clinics as part of our National Fitness Campaign. New programs are bringing students outdoors across America. The Fitness Court mobile app is your gateway to enroll in these programs. Simply scan the new digital wall with your phone to access a library of free workouts designed to optimize your experience on the fitness court. Learn the moves and take challenges as we dig deep to create impact for our partners across America. This year, we are thrilled to introduce Fitness Court Public Art. Cities have the opportunity to select a local artist to design their fitness court using the power of the arts and fitness outdoors in iconic public spaces. We're proud to have helped cities of all sizes raise millions of dollars from respected sponsors to support free fitness. Wherever fitness is a priority, you can find a fitness court. Building beyond 200 cities and colleges, we're partnering with large cities using urban movement data to map the best locations for healthy infrastructure. We're bringing fitness courts to within 10 minutes of population centers everywhere.
They provide these wraparound services that, from a city's perspective, that's what you want in a partner like this. You want it to come presented to you on a silver platter with a bow tied around it. They're one of the best partners, I think, that I personally have ever worked with.
We serve almost 1.2 million members across Michigan. And this partnership really is an opportunity for us to bring scalable, free health and wellness opportunities to our community. So I would actually invite cities and organizations, big and small, to explore the opportunity to invest in fitness courts. To be very honest with you, the feedback from different municipalities and different communities has been very positive.
We're committed to raise $150 million to bring the campaign to 1,000 cities and schools, building the largest fitness movement in the world. Join us. Let's make world-class fitness free.
Okay, so like I said, I think what I'd like to do is kind of open it up for questions. Maybe I can structure this a little bit because I do have this slide presentation. Usually the presentation focuses the first half on what the campaign's all about, and the second half is really focused on, well, how do you get qualified for the program? I guess the other huge call out is in Maine. Health Options is our partner and really has bolstered the effort to make a network of outdoor fitness courts that will eventually create impact. And really that's the main reason that the campaign exists, is to curb the conditions and health challenges brought on by inactivity, and of course, all of the great things about being outside and being active that are related to a lot of the conditions that plague our system. So I think what I'd like to do is kind of invite some questions around, the campaign itself, the fitness court, and then once we kind of exhaust some of those, then maybe we can get into how do you get qualified? How does the funding work? Does that sound like an okay way to do it?
I think that seems fine. The one thing I know that were my two initial questions, which these guys may have, is if in your comments, you guys can reference any Main Street communities you have worked with, and or make sure to reference the rural nature of Maine, whereas the video largely reflects more urban work. Those are just two things that I think will relate this to Maine or ground it with where we live.
Sure. I think I could speak a little bit more easily to the rural component and then the Main Street partners. I know that we've done some good work there, and we have 250 partners on our way to 500 soon. And so understanding exactly which cities and schools came to us through which organizations, I don't have at the top of mind. But in terms of the range of partners in the locations and sites across the country, well, I think Meriden, Kansas may be the smallest city that we work with, and I think they are not yet over 1,000 people. And there are some other folks. There's another location in Ohio that is, I'm thinking of, that's less than 2,000 people. And then of course we're in cities like San Francisco and Santa Ana and Oklahoma and larger cities as well. So the idea that we can create impact and that we would like to see fitness courts ubiquitous in outdoor recreation like basketball courts and tennis courts and now pickleball courts, then this is kind of the goal to use the built environment. Somebody somewhat alluded to that earlier in the introductions, but the idea that you can build a community and everything in the community or components of the community that actually change behavior. This is a key component of what the campaign's all about. Are there, first of all, did that answer your question, Anne, vaguely? And then
yeah, absolutely. I just wanted these guys to know, because I heard this in an earlier meeting with you guys, that you have partnered with Main Street communities. So even if we're not identifying them and talking about them right now, I just wanted them to know that. There are questions coming up in the chat, like talk about seasonality, talk about liability issues and how those are addressed. So I can monitor the chat, and it's a small enough group, people can certainly take themselves off mute as well.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you, Ann, too, for monitoring the chat, because that'll help me. And then if you just reflect the questions, I'd love that. So seasonality specifically, you heard the gentleman from Priority Health talk about, or actually it was the gentleman from Oakland University talk about, Michiganders getting out. I'm sure that in Maine, it's not too much different, that as soon as the sun shines, folks get out. There are some of us that will go out regardless of whether the sun is out and whether there's snow on the ground. And so the great thing about the fitness court, and there's a group of guys here that were involved in the redevelopment of the campaign that launched actually back in 1979 with wooden metal structures. But the whole idea that we want to create impact and have it be outside. This team did a great job of designing this to be an outdoor gym from the ground up. So it wasn't a playground concept that turned into fitness, or it wasn't indoor fitness that turned into outdoor fitness. It's really designed to be outside for a number of decades. So, all the materials, the design, the build, the lack of moving parts. So there's not a ton of moving parts so that it's easily maintained. So the idea would be, you keep it clean and free of debris, and maybe in some cases free of snow, and you'll be able to use it and stretch the seasons, if you will. Are there other questions, or Ann, can you?
I have a million questions, but I'm not part of Ann's group. I'm part of the state perspective. Sure. And realistically, this is all great. And it's really, to me, some of the pictures I saw were really geared to people that are already involved in fitness. And part of the work of the state and the active community environment work group is really to get low or no cost resources or opportunities, physical activity opportunities for rural and cities in Maine. So I love that you've had some experience with the rurality. We've done a lot of mapping in the past for what exists in some of the states. And so I have questions around, we do have existing tennis courts that aren't being used, and would that be an opportunity for a rebuild or redesign, or even, a place for people to be able to go? But whose responsibility is it, is what comes to me. Is it a rec department? Is it, who owns that most generally? Do you do joint use agreements? Do you work with school departments? I think the model could be crazy, big, and depends on who has the most sustainability. But I think about, Karen, your previous position, and when funding goes away, you tend to see things like tennis courts, or like whoever was taking care of recreational programs also go away. So I'm really interested in the sustainability of it. And then who cleans the snow off?
Yeah, great questions. So tennis courts are a pretty common repurposing. They're the one thing that's common with all tennis courts that get repurposed is it's sort of a flat area that's easy to work with in terms of grading and so forth. The fitness court is built on top of a cement slab. It does need to be a cement slab, and so that changes things for tennis courts depending on what the substructure is. I don't want to say most, but it's common that asphalt is the substructure on a lot of tennis courts, so that would need to be removed, and then a cement slab could be put in. But there are some tennis courts that have a substructure of cement as well. So in those cases, it can be repurposed right away. And you're right, recreation is a common partner. City, town, county, campus recreation is a common partner. And you're also right that there's lots of stakeholders in any given community. And so sometimes it is a combination of schools and recreation departments or recreation districts and cities, towns, or counties. So it can be a blend. And then as far as who's responsible, once the fitness court is launched, it's the responsibility of the community, let's say the city, depending on, basically it's the owner of the land. And then generally speaking, Public Works or Parks and Recreation are responsible for the maintenance, although the maintenance is negligible. Again, keeping it free of debris and snow and checking for the bolts on the few moving parts that there are. And then there's a lot of support from the campaign regarding programming support. So you can see all of these things that kind of, the campaign really is a campaign. Yes, the fitness court anchors it, but there are all sorts of pieces like the app that's free to the community, free for residents to access, that gets refreshed annually. So there's always content there. There's a QR code on the wall. There's graphics on the wall that help people sort of use the fitness court. The design of the fitness court with functional movement and 7 stations with 7, what some people have called primal movement patterns. And I think the significance of primal is that there are things that we all do. Push and pull and brace and hinge at your hips, squat down, stand back up again. So at the very basic level, there are 7 stations for a quick 7-minute workout. And it makes, it's hard to do wrong. So when you show up, you can kind of figure out that, wow, I can either sit down on this block, or I can stand up on it, or I can jump up on it. And it's extremely scalable, meaning that since folks move this way sort of naturally, that you can make an adjustment and your body is, 1 million times more adjustable than any machine. And so you make adjustments appropriate for your movement capability. I got off on a little bit of a tangent there, but I think the idea is that, you know, the longevity, the accessibility, the use, whether fully supported by local programming or by, you know, the intuitive nature of the design, or by the app or other programming, there's a whole range of ways to keep things rolling and active and creating the impact that really we all want to see created in the community.
Other questions in the chat? What is the size of the court?
Yeah, great question. Speaking of tennis courts, it's about half the size of a tennis court inside the playing lines. I think that gives you the best visual. So it's pretty compact, can accommodate up to 30 people at a time in an organized group class. That translates into feet as 38 by 38 feet for the concrete slab.
A lot of these communities, I think of parks that are located near where they have access to the river, and or Michael, I'm thinking of the Ironman that's coming to Augusta, and I know the timing isn't right, but I'm thinking like, wow, like this, if this were in a staging area for like a major athletic event, that would be really cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, a few things coming to mind. More questions about liability, Mike. Do you want to dive into that?
Yeah, sure. I guess the good news on this is that what we've seen with all of our partners is that there's no additional insurance or liability needed. Basically, if you have playgrounds or other public structures in the community that the fitness court falls and is covered underneath the liability there. Of course, there are some key things that the campaign and the fitness court designers kept in mind. One is there, as I'm going to forget the name of the organization right now. There are actually outdoor fitness standards, if you will. And so building to those standards helps everybody be less at risk. Of course, there's also a disclaimer on the fitness court wall. It is intended for all adults ages 14 and over, and it's pretty clearly stated on the fitness court. So to the extent that that limits liability, that's part of the process as well. The other thing that's great is, again, there's no additional weight. This is body weight, and this is, again, functional, for lack of a better way of describing it, recognizable movements. So there's a lot that has gone, again, from the ground up, designed to get people to move and move safely outdoors. And so there's a lot of thought that has gone into that to reduce everybody's risk.
So we have public health, and then we have our downtowns, all of whom collect lots of data, economic reinvestment statistics, and obviously public health different with Dawn's lens. But have you guys done any evaluations, user data, that kind of thing?
Yeah, you can imagine that the app is a tool that would be really useful there. And of course, the upside is that it is very useful, and that there's lots of great information on folks who have downloaded the app, and those folks that have used challenges and those types of things. There, of course, the limit there is that it's only for the folks that choose to download the app. So there are lots of data collection pieces that are coming into play, trail counters and those types of things that will come into play in terms of gathering data. Our team's pretty good at gathering general data, and we've done that as well in case studies, and sort of impact on number of uses in a day, number of workouts done, number of calories burned, classes done in a month, on a sort of case by case, a couple of case studies. So we can share those. But yeah, that's the kind of data that we have at the moment. And then of course, ongoing, it's always about more data in some of those tools that I just mentioned.
Great. it seems like there are a number of questions, and I don't know whether everybody's feeling like now is like a time to transition to like, what if my community is it? What I'm interested, I want to build this in my community. The funding partnership model and all that.
Well, I'm amazed at how well this is like corresponding to how we usually do the standard briefing. This is fantastic. Yeah. So perfect transition, and gives us a good chance to talk about specifically how this works in Maine with partnership with health options. And, you know, so you mentioned some of the data, and there's a lot of work and thought that has gone into a plan to have eventually more than 100 fitness courts across the state to create a network that, of course, once the network is created, that's where we'll see the most impact. There's $500,000 in funding available now for a 2022 program, and that begs the question of how do you get involved? And there are always across the country and in Maine, 4 main elements that the campaign looks to align with any given community. And of course, the first is aligning with the vision and mission and the drive, if you will, of any given community around health and wellness and activity. And we want, you know, part of our overall process is to partner with like-minded folks and communities that want to see more activity and less problems associated with conditions and health conditions that are activity and mental health focuses, all of these things, engaging communities, and basically improving the quality of life through health and mental health and activity. The second piece is site, and having an appropriate site. And of course, you can imagine that site will be really important. I'll show a slide on that in a second. And then funding, which I'll talk about how that works and how it typically comes together, and then timing. I won't spend too much time on this wellness as a priority because I kind of said what I think is important here, but of course there's tons of influencers in any given community. So aligning and sharing the information and getting some consensus of support and helping you all share with the people that you know are important in your community, that's kind of step one. I did mention the site, and we do a lot of work and assuming that there is some interest and some alignment and feasibility. This is generally a step 2 before we get into supporting the grant application and the funding process. We can also put some data into play around best sites in any given community and do a little bit more of a specific study, if you will, around activity, demographics. But bottom line, the items listed 1, 2, 3 here are the most important things: are recognizability, accessibility, and connectedness. And this will all support the idea of creating impact. The funding. So the funding as a general model is shown here. I can go into a lot more detail at any given time. There is some breakdown and some timing elements that I think are important to address here, but the general funding is described as an overall project and partnership here. $165,000 for everything that is the fitness court, the consulting and support of the National Fitness Campaign, the Ambassador Training Program, which I haven't even mentioned yet, but there is a training program that is supported by the campaign to have local folks be that human touch, if you will, to supplement some of the digital things that we have. Anyway, all of that stuff is $140,000, and then there's $25,000 that's needed for the installation. So that makes up the $165,000. There are some art options that don't go into this particular equation, but the other piece that you'll want to consider in your planning is a concrete slab, as we mentioned, and we talked about the repurposing of the tennis court. But concrete slab, depending on if you're lucky enough to be able to get that donated or have that done in-house, could be no additional funding. And then we estimate on the high end that it would be, no more than $20,000 for this very simple 4-inch 38 by 38 concrete slab. The grant funding that is a combination between health options and our national grant pool is $50,000. And then that, of course, translates into this range of funding that's anywhere between $115,000 and $135,000 in any given community for a given launch of the fitness court and the campaign, which probably leads to the next question, which is how does that typically come together? It is not uncommon for cities, counties, schools, towns to budget for this process in full through a CIP or other general budget line. But it's also not uncommon for those budgets to be fortified with, I know we have some experts in CDBG funding on the call. ARPA funding has been used quite a lot, or any of the COVID relief funding. The CARES, I think was the initial act, and then the ARPA funding. We've found a lot of folks using those funds. There's lots of state funding or local funding. So we can assist when that makes sense in terms of either identifying some of those additional funding spots and of course supporting any application processes that happen there. In fact, the award of our grant is sometimes used as some of the funding that's already seeding the process that looks good on other applications. Of course, there's also the option to have a partner alongside Health Options in terms of sponsors. If there's a complementary local business and or organization that wants to sponsor, we're pretty good at taking the best practices that we have noted and sharing them with folks to help them in the fundraising part of things. So generally speaking, that's how the funding comes together. I should probably pause here because there's typically a lot of questions around funding.
No questions, nothing in the chat at the moment.
Great. So I think the next piece is really the timing. And so this is a very kind of general and broad. There's of course lots of different things involved in the timing. There's basically the qualification process, the application and award process, and then there's the fun part of actually launching and consulting our partners all the way through the launch of the campaign, and again, in order to create impact. As far as our where we are now with many of the folks in Maine is discussing feasibility and then moving towards supporting a successful submission of an award of the grant and grant eligibility. From there, again, that's when we get into the fun pieces of finishing off any of the fundraising that needs to happen or confirming how the funding will come together and then planning for the launch. I think that if there's other questions, this is great. I'm curious about any feedback as well, but I think I stole Ginger's slide presentation here, and so her information, we can share this with you all, and then you'll have our information. Would love to kind of talk about and support any interest and further discussions around feasibility, and generally see how we align, especially on these 4 pieces. If there's any other discussion around that today, I'm happy to answer more questions too.
There's a number of requests in the chat about if you would share the slide presentation, or is the next step, Mike, like a phone call one-on-one with someone from your team and a Main Street director, for instance?
The answer is probably yes to both of those things. Like we can do both. It probably makes good sense because there's lots of support in the grant application and award process that probably makes some sense to talk through. But in terms of generally sharing, usually at this point when we've had one-on-one conversations, the homework that we assign everybody is take this back to the folks that will be influential in the process, and let's get some feedback and see if there's feasibility. Do we have some alignment? And then commonly we'll come back together maybe with a new group of people, review some of this information and talk about sites and then next steps from there.
Great. And there's a few requests for contact information. I see Ginger's information in there and Amanda's. So whoever from your team, everybody can reach out to would be great.
Yeah.
Other questions? You all are hoping to build 5 of these courts in Maine. Did I hear that?
Yeah, so this is interesting in terms of timing because we're talking, I wish I came with a list of conversations we've already had. I'll say that there's at least 10, as many as 20 conversations happening for up to 10 grant awards. Okay. And our experience with your neighbor, New York, is that they had 15 grants, and those basically were awarded within the first 3 to 6 months of launch, and we're kind of in that window right now. So
and
that's
is
the
the
idea.
Application rolling, Mike? Or
yeah, it's pretty much rolling, but again, I think I threw out that 3 to 6 month window because I think that's going to be about the time frame that we would expect awards to be complete and then processes to have begun in terms of launch.
Yeah, we're right in that window. We're still, as Mike said, right in that early 3 to 6 month period. It's not too late, but it's not something you want to sit on for too long. And the application process, and as Mike sort of mentioned, there's a briefing call and some sort of discovery, and then if there's more interest, there's they kind of take you through an evaluation, a kind of a site evaluation, and it's all done by Zoom to see if local sites would preliminarily qualify, to open up an application, and they bring you through the application process itself. It's not terribly difficult, but while it is rolling, it's something we want to get moving on pretty soon. And that's
Right.
and this is perfect. We brought this to you not only as individual sites, but to bring it back to partners of yours and within your communities and other communities that you think would be appropriate.
Great. Dawn, you have a question.
Yeah, I think, Mike, you said that there's 10 conversations going on. Is that in Maine currently?
Yeah, there's hundreds of conversations going on across the country, but in Maine, a minimum, I didn't, again, come prepared for this, but we have at least 10 conversations going on. I think it's probably upwards of 20 conversations, all at different stages from, this, Steve mentioned the briefing call to folks that have already submitted applications.
Wow. So my question to like the folks that are getting this presentation and a part of Ann's network is really, are they working with, and the people that you've been talking with throughout Maine, are they working with municipalities on their ARPA funds? I know you mentioned that, but there's a lot of people that they're struggling with spending that down. And I think that's a great opportunity if their liability can be addressed and if there's long-term sustainability plans.
There's, from our perspective, yes, this is a pretty common funding support piece alongside CDBG funds, alongside either, most commonly, I think probably ARPA funds have become the most common supplement to budgets for our partners. Alongside CDBG funds. Yeah, and we've got some pretty good expertise around ARPA funds and how those are justified, if you will.
Yep.
And so we can share that information too.
Great. I think we have time for one more question. Christina.
Well, I have technically 2, but I was curious
okay.
if New Balance in the past has been been a partner in this work, because New Balance is involved in 2 communities in Maine. And then I was wondering if you could throw back up the funding slide so I could take a quick screenshot of that.
Sure.
Thanks.
Here's your funding slide. And New Balance, I don't think that New Balance has been involved, certainly on a large scale. If so, it might have been an individual fitness court and it would obviously generally tend to be in the Northeast. But I don't recall. If it was part of an individual campaign at a smaller level.
Great.
It's a great idea for a partnership, though.
Right in Skowhegan, Maine.